Welcome to Uncaged, a show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Today, we're speaking with Michael Appel. Hey, Michael, how are you?
Good morning. I'm great. Nice to see you.
It's great to have you on the show, Michael. Today, we're going to be speaking a lot about retail. Michael is the managing director of Getzler Henrich and Associates. He leads their retail practice, and we'll be talking about all of the transitions and transformations that we've seen in the retail space over the last couple of years and what's happening right now and going forward. But before we get there, Michael, you've had an incredible career. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your career.
Okay. Well, I'll try to do a little thumbnail because there's a lot to go over. I started in the business in the 70s as a merchant. I'd spent 10 years at Bloomingdale's where I was a cookware buyer, and then I ended up going over to apparel and running the children's division. From there, I went to a company called Fortunoff, which was sort of the precursor, big box precursor to Bed Bath & Beyond, where I was vice president of merchandising and built their housewares business. And then from there, I went to a series of specialty retailers where I was president and chief executive or chief operating officer. In the 90s, I sort of transitioned from working with really kind of traditional retail companies to working with retailers that had challenges, and started to do turnaround work and ran companies as diverse as Caswell Massey, Laura Ashley, did a lot of work for Goldman Sachs, ran some businesses they owned in New Zealand, and I've covered pretty much every category of merchandise in every channel, both from bricks and mortar to catalog to e-commerce, and anywhere from mass discount to luxury. So I was the last chairman of the board of Lomans, and was also ran Baccarat Crystal and
Wow.
Wilkes Bashford in San Francisco.
That's incredible.
Yeah, well, it's fun. I'm very agnostic when it comes to merchandise and channel. I find it all very interesting because you're dealing with the consumer and understanding the consumer, and I think that understanding is really what helps you successfully operate businesses as well as turn them around.
So, yeah. I mean, it's a really interesting career. You've seen, I would say, kind of like that heyday of the kind of 80s and 90s where, retail was just exploding, malls were everywhere. And then the birth of digital restructuring, reforming that. And now kind of this new world of Omni commerce and how companies are actually preparing for that. So you've seen everything. And now you're in this role, Getzler Henrich and Associates, leading their retail practice. Tell me a little bit about the transformations that you're going to be facing here.
Well, I think that, retail has been, in terms of restructuring, has been so a blip at the beginning of the pandemic, where a lot of large retailers like Neiman's were structured, and some other large retailers as well. And then it sort of went quiet. And I think that also during that period of time, the lender community sort of gave retailers some breathing room because of the severity of the situation, how it was affecting everyone, and knowing that it was transient to some extent, that this was not going to go on forever. And then coming out of the pandemic, and with the impetus of the stimulus, the consumer stimulus, which injected a huge amount of money into consumers' pocketbooks, 2021 was a fabulous year for almost every retailer. And although product was in short supply, consumers were still sitting at home and clicking and doing all sorts of things to their homes and buying sweats, doing all sorts of things that they hadn't done before, and to that degree. And so you saw some explosive growth and great profitability and great use of working capital, because consumers were buying what was on the shelves or what was online, and were not particularly price sensitive. as far as promotions are concerned. So we saw a much less promotional um, uh, activity on the part of retailers last year, which really translated into great, great profits. And it was sort of like a perfect storm of profitability for the retail community.
I'd be curious. So it's an interesting one because I think that some of the companies that I know that you're mentioning, like the Neiman Marcuses of this world, were going through aggressive digital transformations before the pandemic. How did the pandemic change the pace of this change? I mean, did you see that retailers embraced it a lot more, or
well,
what was going
progressive
on?
ones did, right? I mean, I think what happened was that the progressive retailers really have been working on digital, their digital initiatives for a long time. When you look at, Target investing a lot of money into digital, and Walmart, years ago they bought Jet in order to give them a platform to compete with Amazon, and so investing. And I think that when the pandemic hit and people were sitting at home, a lot of customers who weren't necessarily digital first customers really had no choice. So they started going online, and so they became, what in the future be much more omni-channel. So you got a lot of people really really getting involved with digital, and that's why the growth was so dramatic over that period. So I think there was an acceleration of that, which to some degree, in other words, if retailers were growing like 10 to 15% on in digital sales normally, that was going up to 30%, 40%, 50%. So they could have like truncated 2 or 3 years worth of growth into 1 year. Now what's happening is that with the opening up of the economy and lifestyles and people going back to shopping in person and doing things in person and socializing, what we're seeing is that customers are going back into stores. And the prediction is that growth in e-commerce will moderate to some degree. It's still going to continue to grow, but that stores are going to have a lot more traffic than they've had in the past. So
that makes a ton of sense to me. I mean, I certainly find myself just as an end consumer spending more time in stores, and you can see that retailers are going through that transition. I mean, it can be on so many levels. I'd say one of probably the ones that you've come across is just staffing. I think there was a lot of cuts, and then they're now trying to bring back, the staff of these places really matters in terms of that experience.
Exactly. And actually, if you look at the two biggest challenges that are facing retailers today, one is supply chain, how to get it in balance, because we went from not being able to get inventory to having a lot of retailers being quite overstocked this fall season, and recruiting, training, and retaining frontline associates. And that is you've seen this across, whether it's retail, whether it's restaurants, anything that's consumer facing, could be bank, could be anything like that. And so the key is, it's how do you attract people, but then how do you train them so that they don't want to leave? And people say, it's all about money. Yes, money is important, but when you really dig in, what you realize is that for frontline associates, they want to feel engaged with the company. They want to feel a mastery over what they're doing, and they have fun, right? And what we're asking in the retail business, what we're asking associates to do today is much more complicated than it was years ago. In the old days, it was basically, okay, you come in, you put the stock out in the store, you ring the register, and hopefully you interact with your customers, right? and sell. And today, not only is that table stakes, but also because of the rise of technology and additional ancillary services we're offering to customers, it's like, okay, buy online, pick up in store, curbside pickup, ship from store. All of these things that are requiring sales associates to be more tech savvy and to have more tasks to do. So unless they're trained to do it so they feel good about it, they could be overwhelmed. And that's one of the reasons why you're seeing the turnover you're seeing, and also you're saying, okay, well, I can make as much money, like flipping burgers at McDonald's, right? And it's very
Yeah.
easy to do that, but it's not the same in the sense that, if you like fashion, if you like interacting with consumers, if you like sort of the freedom of being able to move around a store and do lots of different things, and also and really sort of measure results, right?
I think, it also comes down to that idea that, I mean, certainly you can explore and discover stuff online for sure. However, sometimes it's actually not so easy to find stuff. It's not so easy to get good counsel. I think that there's a huge, huge area for whether it be traditional companies that have pushed into the digital space or vice versa. I spent the weekend purchasing new glasses at Warby Parker. So,
Right.
and it's fascinating that, there's a company that started with a fun little online model, but clearly I'd assume that their retail business must be the bulk of their revenue these days.
Well, I think that what they realized, a lot of digitally native companies realized that there was a limit to their growth online, and the online model is not necessarily as profitable as people think,
Mm,
particularly because of if you're offering free shipping, if you're offering free returns, etc. You have to calculate the cost of that into the way you do business. And let's say you're Zappos, right? I
yeah.
was at a conference, a sourcing conference in New York, and the chief customer officer of Zappos was talking about his own experience, which is, well, I wanted to buy a couple of pair of shoes. So he ordered like 8 pair and he returned 6. Well, what's the cost of doing that? All right. And we know, and we've done a lot of work actually recently with clients just about around that issue of, you know, uh, when do you charge, what should your threshold be for free shipping?
Yeah.
Should you be charging for returns? Should you be charging a restocking fee? Well, if you're a small and middle market company, and you're not Amazon, which by the
Mm,
way does charge
yeah.
for shipping, all right, but people forget about it because they pay their once a year Amazon Prime membership, right? And
Hmm.
the shipping is free. Well, it's not. They paid $140 or whatever the fee is now for doing it. But for a lot of these other retailers, they have to really analyze their business model to make sure that they're not giving away. But for the Warby Parkers of this world, that did a lot of did and Bonobos, remember, was
Yeah.
the first one, was they realized that they needed to have a retail presence in order to grow their business and become profitable. And I
Yeah.
think that the omni-channel model is a good model because basically, if you look at consumers today, right, uh, they want what they want when they want it, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes they're in the mood, to buy online. Sometimes they research online and they want to buy in stores, etc. But I think your point before about the experience of being in a store uh, is important because if you're buying fashion apparel, all right,
Yeah.
uh, I think that the ability to go to a store that is focused on you and what you like,
Yeah.
and be surrounded by merchandise,
Yeah.
and to try on product and build outfits and accessorize, is all part of the experience.
I think it's needed still. I found
Absolutely.
myself at Saks Fifth Avenue the other day, and it just hit me. My son was going off to college, and we were trying to buy him a couple of nice things so that he would have, if he got invited to various things, have a suit or something. And it was just good to talk to somebody that was knowledgeable. Certainly, I could go online and buy a cheap suit from somewhere, but I don't know what a good suit is. I mean, I'm
Right,
not an expert on this stuff,
right,
right?
right, right.
So,
And also the ability to get in the dressing room and
yeah,
try different things and
yeah.
see, I like this looks more flattering, this is good, and then how do you complete the outfit, all right,
Yeah.
in the store. So
Absolutely. So listen, Michael, I feel like, in the next couple of weeks, you're going to be the most popular analyst everywhere as everyone looks at the Black Friday. We look to try to see what the retail outlets are doing and what the numbers look like. But I also feel like Black Friday's moved and changed, certainly with the digital era. I think there used to be kind of Cyber Monday and all these things. But Tell me a little bit about what you're seeing as we go into this holiday season.
Yeah, well, I think that there's sort of a reset this year in the sense that, people are going to be shopping in stores more. B, uh, many retailers are much more heavy with inventory than they have been in the past, and
Mm.
that's been, Target talked about it, Walmart's talked about it, Nike um, uh, in their earnings call said that they were 30% over last year in inventory,
Yeah.
and question's going to be, and that's not uncommon across the board because of what happened where that supply chain was sort of broken, and then they all ordered and maybe over ordered in anticipation that things were going to in 22 were going to be better than 21. And
Hmm.
21, look at 21, you have to take out the effect of the stimulus from what your base sales are, and
Yeah.
then say, okay, based on that, um, we reasonably expect that this is how much business we're going to be doing. And
Right.
I think retailers who are always optimistic, okay, and maybe over optimistic, you know, just said, well, the party's going to go on forever, and we're going to need more. And then when you add on to it, it's a very complicated year. When you add on the effect of inflation, all right.
Yeah, I was going to push into that actually, Michael, because here we are at the end of 2022, and certainly we are living with the realities of inflation. I mean, it is higher than it's been since the 1970s. Michael, as you talked about, back in the day, I remember my parents' mortgage being like 18%. And I said that to the team the other day, and a couple of young people just like gasped. Like, it seems so strange, but we've had moments where the inflation has been high in recent history. Certainly we now have this moment. Tell me how you think that's going to impact.
Look, I always say Christmas comes every year, right? If you look at the numbers, the monthly numbers this year, last year are up, mid to high single digits. And the
Yeah.
predictions from the NRF and some of the other consulting firms are there's going to be, Christmas sales are going to be anywhere from 4 to 8% higher than last year. That's in dollars.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you look at what the unit sales are going to be, since prices have gone up, 10%, 15%, 20% in luxury,
Yeah.
the luxury retailers are have been putting in huge price increases. What you're going to see is people are going to be buying less units, but it's going to be more dollars. And so the key is disciplined inventory planning and saying, okay, and we haven't had to do that for 40 years.
Right.
So, and the last time we had inflation, what we learned was actually inflation was pretty good for retail sales. Sales went up. However, if you weren't careful to move that back, whatever that number was, to how many units that's going to translate into in terms of what you need to purchase, you become over inventory. And I think we're in that cycle now. And so retailers really need to really rethink, how they plan their inventories, and or otherwise what's going to happen is, and we're living with a certain amount of this now, is that you're in this over inventory position, and the only way to get out of it is going to be to promote or to job it off or whatever, and that's going to impact profitability. And I think you're going to see some we're already seeing, if you looked at some of the numbers that have been reported third quarter from retailers and also from some of the manufacturers, is that profits are declining. So they're going to have to reset in terms of how they run their business, so they don't get into this over inventory position. And the other piece of it too is, let's face it, you cannot underestimate, or you need to take into account the fact that gasoline is up 33% from last year at this time. Energy's up 16%. I just read an article about what the differences are, and food is up. So those are like non-discretionary, right?
Yeah.
To have that. So for middle and lower income consumers, that's going to bite into their discretionary income.
Yeah.
And you're going to say to yourself, okay, well, if that's the case, which is almost like the polar opposite of last Christmas, where there was tons of money around in people's pockets, then consumers are going to be more discriminating in their purchase behavior.
Right.
And so you're going to have to give them a reason to buy. And I would say two things that you need to keep in mind. One is that people are going to be looking for deals because the media, the Today Show is, don't shop until such and such a day, or is Black Friday really the lowest numbers, or are you going to get a better deal 10 days before Christmas? There's that piece of it, which is on everybody's mind. And in addition to that fact, it's like customers, when they have less money to spend and be more discriminating, want to be excited by the merchandise they buy.
Right.
So you're going to see less purchasing, in my opinion, okay, of sort of like basic commodity goods.
Right.
I need another pair of black pants, or a basic tee or whatever. I'd much rather buy something, really cool, great looking dress, a great looking sweater, a new handbag or something that's going to excite me. So contrary to what a lot of people feel, a lot of people, what they do is they play it safe. And the consumer is not interested. The consumer you need to pry open their wallet, right, to get them to buy. So in these times when people are, psychologically a little on edge, and we have the whole election and everything else like that, it's like they want to have fun. They want to be inspired and excited by what they buy. So they make the mistake of not investing enough in fashion. And let me tell you, that's a big mistake because the retailers that will do well.
Yeah, no, I can see that. And it's certainly interesting times. Once again, the great thing, Michael, about your career is the retail industry is always dynamic, always changing. And certainly we're going through another one of those cycles. But before we end, I'd just be curious, if you play the role of Nostradamus for a second and you look forward, when are we going to see kind of that magical world of easy omni-commerce kind of being part of all of our lives?
Well, I think I think that people are adapting to technology. Technology is with us, and also it's not the enemy. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at it, it's another way for us to be able to make things easier, right? Saving time and whatever, and also for retailers, technology is really, when you look at how the cost of running a retailer is much greater than it was in the past, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to be omni-channel, and then you're investing in social media, and all sorts of other things that are going on. So you have to say to yourself, okay, how do I maintain my profitability? Well, there are so many technology solutions that are available to retailers today that can help them do that, and better inventory planning, AI-powered training of frontline associates. Predictive analytics and helping merchants buy the right stuff. It's all available. And there's another platform that some of our customers are using that helps them, sort of scrape the internet to see what are their competitors charging for items.
Yeah.
Can we raise prices? Do we have to lower prices? How do we be priced right in that regard? So there are all these things that you can do today that weren't available before, or incredibly costly to implement. And now you've got the cloud, and you can do all sorts of things that are, you can implement them, great ROIs to help you do it. So I think that it's like, listen, technology is going to move forward. Younger consumers embrace it in every.
It's wonderful when you go into these places now, these malls, and you'll go into a store and there's so many new business models being rolled out in the retail space. I was in one of the Nike stores where, I went to purchase an item and they're like, oh, no, you got to do this. You got to download the app to be able to purchase this. It's kind of like, oh, I just want to buy these shoes. No, sir, you have to download the app.
And the associates have to be to help you do that.
Yeah, okay? Exactly.
Right? So that's where the training comes in, right?
Yeah.
In that, and then when they do it and you get the transaction done, boom. Okay.
And also it does actually create a loyalty structure too. I mean, you do immediately have kind of a direct line, and I'm sure there's data capture there, and it's amazing. Well, Michael, it's been great talking to you about what you're working on. We've been speaking with Michael Appel. He's the managing director at Getzler Henrich and Associates. He leads their retail practice, and we've been talking about really the changes of the retail space and some of the areas that companies are going to be thinking about as they restructure and move forward over the next couple of months and years. Lots of dynamism in the industry right now. Michael, if someone wanted to learn more about what you and the Getzler Henrich and Associates team are up to, where's the best place to find you?
Well, you can email me directly at Appel, Mappel, at GetzlerHenrich.com, or give me a call at 917-789-3615. And we love to talk to clients and retailers, and we pride ourselves in really giving them personalized attention, whether it's a healthy business or a business that's under stress. We love it all. So we'd love to talk to you guys.
Excellent. Well, we hope that everybody has a good Black Friday and a good Cyber Monday. But Michael, thank you so much for being on the program today. Cheers.
My pleasure.